Hi, welcome to LiTup 365, winter session 6. This is our last session of winter. It's happening. We've made it through the darkest time of the year and the light is beginning to grow. And so this session is called the personal factor. And this session is going to be all about where we find our power. So I'm really excited to go into it. I'm really excited to move towards spring, but I do want to honor this last bit of winter. We do not want to rush forward too quickly. So I want to begin this session by talking about where we find our power. So the path of nature is where I want to begin. We need to remember how nature works. And I've talked about this a little bit, that there are these three components to any thriving aspect of nature, right? That we need our nutrients and that we need non-interference. So I've talked about with the grass, it needs sunlight and food and the nutrients, the water that feeds it. It also needs non-interference. I can't go pull up the grass and have it thrive, and I can't go pour chemicals on it. That third aspect is what I want to get in today, which is about being a healthy part of the ecosystem. So of course, grass contributes to the ecosystem in so many ways, but I want to talk about how do we become a healthy part of our ecosystem? How do we bring the component to the ecosystem of the world that best serves that? And that's the important part today, because this is where I talk about the fact that the grass on the mountain, who knows how long it's existed. It is thriving, and so it just continually regenerates. And we're the same way. So if we want to live a long, healthy life, we need to make sure we honor this component of being a part of the ecosystem. And that means so much more than just existing in cooperation with the earth. Things like recycling, honoring the planet. We need to do that, but there's more to it than that. And that's what I want to get into today. So what I want to talk about today is I want to introduce this concept I have of the degrees of power and the levels of power we feel. And I break this down into four. I really like this concept of the power of four. You know, there are 4 seasons, there are 4 directions, and I have this concept of these 4 levels of power, and it's very similar to some other concepts out there, but this is really connected to how we feel personal power. So the first level I want to talk about is feeling powerless. So we all have these moments where we feel powerless. We all experience parts of our existence where we have no power. And it's not that a lot of people say we always have choice, and that's not true. I mean, just think of children. They don't really have choice. Their existence is vulnerable to the world around them. And so it's not about choice. And there's a lot we're powerless to. And especially that outer layer of what I talk about in how nature grows from the inside out. And that is that outer layer of existence. We do not have power over the world. This goes back to that serenity prayer concept. We don't have the power to make the rest of the world comply with what we want. We are powerless in that. And so at this level of existence, at this powerless state, is where our life roles exist. Whether we feel successful or failure, or successful or failing, if we feel like a victim or strong. Now, everything at the level of existence begins at the core, but we can't control it at the level of existence. And this is why it is in the powerless stage, because by the time it reaches the level of our interaction with the world, it's already been created. So we are powerless to change it. This is basically our definition of life, the outer edge of our circle. And this is where we have no impact. And getting clear on that the world around me is not what I can change, and having an impact on it. When I'm talking ecosystem, I'm talking about having an impact on the world around me, but that's not through trying to change it. And that's the important realization of connecting with where our power truly lies. So after that powerless level, so we have this outer existence level that we are powerless to. The next level in is that experience level I talk about. So the third level of expression is experience. And in the place of power, I call this power greater than me. So these are our relationships. So this is where we have a little more impact, but we've kind of externalized that power. So these are our relationships. So how we define ourselves. I'm a mother or a friend. This is also where we get into concepts of higher power. So a power greater than me often refers to a higher power, but it puts us in a child position to that power. So that power, whatever we consider our deity, it either punishes us or parents us, right? It rewards or it limits. And this isn't bad. This isn't wrong, but it is not having full power within ourselves. This power is in the power greater than us. We wouldn't call it a power greater than us if it wasn't an externalized power. So this is within our bubble, where this is within that small space of existence. So it's not the world as a whole, but this is my personal experience of relationships of my life and how I interact with that. So this can be that definition of relationship, that externalizing of the power source. The next level of power is through expression. So that third level or second level of expression, actually, that I talk about in that inside out concept is my personal expression, where power moves through me. I'm putting something from within my being out into the world. So a lot of times people connect to this power moves through me through their identity. How do I identify? What is my job? What is my definition of myself, right? Am I a teacher, a muse, a man, a woman, neither a man or woman? Am I not defined by my gender? Am I actually defining myself by not being defined by my gender? This is however we define ourselves. This is our ego. Now, again, people want to talk about crushing the ego. I don't think we need to crush the ego. We need that definition. Ego means sense of self. We need a sense of self, but we also need to be flexible in that sense of self. We need to not be bound by one definition, right? So when we're defined in what we're doing, we can feel power, but it's vulnerable, right? Power moving through me is still separate from me. It's moving through me. It's not something that is inherent, and it becomes vulnerable. So if my definition becomes my position in society, my power is now subject to that position. So it's a little closer, and it's powerful and necessary, but it can't be fully definitive of who we are. So this is where it brings me to the first level, what I call the first level of power, which is our essence. This is our first step of creation. It is that internal beingness, that part of us that we can't quantify and that we'll never fully understand. It's that self-discovery, constantly revealing beauty of who we are, and we call it our being, right? Our expression can be our doing, but this is our being. But even though we can't fully grasp it, we are saturated in it, and nothing can take it away from us or ever touch it. This is the power that can never be limited, that can never be damaged or altered by anyone. It is our internal greatness. Who we are is not defined by our relationships or by the world around us or by our role in society or even by our experience of life. So we're going to do an exercise in this next 2 weeks about that definition. Am I defining myself at one of the outer levels of power? Am I defining myself by how I fit in the world? Am I using that externalized value by being recognized by the world or having to be entertained by the world or feeling victimized by the world, right? Is my definition worldly? Or is my definition possibly in relationship? Am I defined by being a mother or being a friend or being kind or being supportive or being contributing? Or am I defined in my doing? Am I defined in the role I have in the world? Am I defined as my position in society, or as the level of education I have, or by my financial status? This being or this doing that I am in the world, is that my definition? Or is there a deeper definition? Is there a definition at the core of my being that transcends everything? So this exercise we do will be about getting to that core definition. We've talked about that a lot. We've done a lot of exercise. All winter is about that. And that's what I want to talk about next. I want to connect these levels of power and expression again to the seasons. So when we look at that core level of power, what I call the first level of power, where we are the most powerful, our level of essence is, of course, connected to winter. We've been talking about this all winter. And we've spent this winter returning to the beginning and learning a new way of living, a new way to be in the world. At that core level, we are independent and alone. No one will ever fully understand or comprehend it. We will never fully understand or comprehend it, but we are the only one that can feel it, that can feel the saturation of it. We can't share that with anyone else. And so that's why winter can feel so alone, but it's our sacred space. It's the place where we are who we are. So it's beautiful. And the journey there, as I've said, winter has become one of my favorite seasons because it is the place where I go within and I connect again with me. And now, as we're moving out of winter, we're going to be moving into that next level of power. This concept where a power of greater than me is, but it's that expression level, because I do need to bring my being state, that internal state, into the world, right? Make this expression into spring. And so I do need to give it identity and definition. It does need to have an ego. And I love LiTup because it's about cycling through and changing that ego definition every year so that we can continually be someone new each and every season. And so here we are now. We've contemplated, we've dug deep, and we've ruminated in possibility. And now spring is where we're going next. It is where we get to start to say, how will I express this internal being and keep it sacred and pure and as authentic as possible? So our next experience is spring and bringing that into being. And of course, that will be followed by the experience of summer. So again, that next outer layer, that bubble, those relationships we have of our experience is how we relate to others, how we interact. But now we want it to be fed, not by the definition of our relationship being our value, but by that internal being expressing itself into that relationship, right? So now that's a shift in consciousness. And this is what summer will be. Summer will be about making it happen. It's about the work, the doing state of the world. And so this is where we get the work done. So that by the time the final level of fall, existence, that level of existence that is fall, it is instead of us trying to be accepted or validated in the world, we can now look at the world as reflecting back to us who we are. And it's a whole different way to interact. And it's where our genius and our happily ever after exists. But to be there in the fall, to be in that place of clarity in the fall, this time of year, it is the coming into spring is the time where we need to commit. So this time of year, I always open up this LiTup session to committing to your path. This is one of the most important steps in this work, is in this session, in the fact that I've ruminated in who I am all summer, and that seed is planted and it's going to grow. But if I commit to a process over the next 6 months, I'm going to foster the healthiest possible outcome out of that, right? I can plant a seed for an apple tree, and an apple tree can grow. But if I don't foster its growth, it might not yield the best apples in the fall. So my goal right now is committing to a path that yields for me the best fruit. So here's the question. If a commitment to this process was the only thing standing between you and a perfect life, if you knew by fall of this year, 6 months from now, you would be living the life of your dreams, would you commit to a process? Would you be willing to do a practice every day? Would you be willing to make it your primary focus? So this is what this time of year is about making a choice. Is my practice a commitment, or is it a hobby? Is my self-realization, my development of who I am, is it something to which I am fully committed, or is it something that I kind of play in sometimes? I like to compare this to working for others. It is amazing to me. It was amazing to me when I became self-employed. When I worked for others, I would work my 8 hours, I would work really hard. But when I started working for myself, I didn't work quite as hard. And that was kind of disappointing to me, because I realized that two things. I had more faith in them to make the money to pay me than I did in myself. But also on top of that, I was more committed to feeling responsible for that to them than I was to myself. And I was a bit disappointed by the fact that I perceived it this way. So the question in this commitment is, do I want real change? Am I willing to make myself the priority in my world? And if I am, what would it take for me to make a daily practice? I've used alarms on my phone. I've set appointments on my calendar so I won't book anything else over it. I've done so many things. Every day I have a reminder that pops up on my phone for a morning practice that I do that is progressing my business forward. It's really important. It's the first thing I do, and I do it every morning. So it's not, do I have time? Can I fit it in? But am I willing to commit to myself and to a daily practice? Am I ready to commit to a path if I knew in September that I could have all my dreams come true? What if I really believed? Would it be worth it to try? Would it be worth it to commit myself to it and at least try this 1 year, 2020? Am I willing to try to just commit maybe 6 months to this end that I have in sight? And as I commit, can I embrace the responsibility of it right here, right now? Can I commit to me? This is conscious intent. This is so important, to live in conscious intent, to live unapologetically as who we are. This is about sharing our gift with the world. This is not a minor thing. And also, it doesn't need to be a difficult thing. Growth does not need to be painful. It does not need to occur at the edge of our comfort zone, but it does need to be committed. And now's the time to do that, to gain the most benefit. We can commit at any time, but committing at this time of year is where we gain the most benefit. If you have plants growing in your garden right now, committing to those plants now will make them the healthiest come fall. And we all know that. I can't decide to quit. I can't decide to commit to those plants in August. Now I can, but I'm going to reap that harvest next year. If I'm going to reap the best harvest I could possibly reap this year, now is my time to commit. And then, as I commit, if your answer is yes, if I say yes, I'm ready to commit, it's time to begin looking for signs of spring. Your growth is already happening. The work now is not planting the seed. You do not have to make an effort now. You're not looking for anything more than anything you already have in this moment to do the work. So again, you're not planting the seeds. They're planted. All you're doing is cultivating them. All you're doing is cultivating the growth that is already occurring from the seed you have already planted. But this begins at the core, right? It begins with that ripple. And I love to think of it this way, that there is a ripple out Essence to expression to experience to existence. Essence to expression to experience to existence. It is happening over and over again constantly. I am continually rippling out the core of who I am. And I'm living the fullness of that, or I'm living some limited expression of it, but I'm always doing it. I can't not be expressing me. Even if I'm not clear on me, even if I limit me, even if I don't give me enough credit, I'm still expressing me. So what I'm talking about doing now is expressing more of me, expressing myself with intent and clarity, creating a strong voice. Again, I talked about that thermometer, right? About how we need to make a radio signal, not measure ourselves on a scale, but create a radio signal that's strong so everyone can see it, everyone can hear it. And that signal is steeped in self-love. This is where our real power is in self-awareness and self-love. Create for yourself such a strong signal that you need to break free of your shell, that there's so much amazing beauty of who you are within you that you're breaking out into the world without even trying. That expression is a natural occurrence. Where I'm going to have several exercises this week that will facilitate this process and lead us right into the next session, which will be the spring. So that seed is breaking open right now. You're working your way to the surface of the soil. And come spring, you're going to start to see sparks of that new life. It's so exciting. So congratulations on ruminating through another winter and coming to this place where we're in our last couple weeks of winter and moving into spring, into the celebration of beginning to see all that beauty we've been creating. So again, you'll have some exercises to follow. Those are there and ready for you. And I do wish you tremendous success on your journey.